Hey guys, welcome. Great day. Happy Friday. Another episode of MK Potcast. If you didn't know, that's what we're calling all of these lives for everything that we're doing. So I'm your host. As you can see the name, this backwards camera right there. I'm Michael Camp. And up that way. This way over here, that's Paul J. Von Hartman. And you're going to get to know him real soon. Initially, I just wanted to say thank you guys for joining. Hope your week was great. If not, you're going to love this episode. You're going to get to know somebody that has been bleeding green for damn near his whole life. He's been fighting for us on levels that most are unaware of, and that fight won't ever stop until cannabis is in each and every one of our hands, right? Our goal is to seed the world, and I'm just blessed to know Paul, and I'm really excited to introduce him to a lot of you. A few of you already do know him, and not enough people have heard of his cause, of him, regardless if we do discuss of the capabilities of the plant, the deterioration of our planet, and, how can we stop these things so that our my great grandkids can have a planet to live on, right? But we'll get more into that. I've got to go ahead and start off with, we're going to have one video here to, shout out to the sponsors, let everybody know a little bit about what's going on. I'm going to do the first video to show the strains from MO CannaCUP. So if you don't know, MO CannaCUP is a digital growing competition available for growers in the United States and Canada. And we're going to be implementing a lot of education within it, onboarding into crypto, blockchain, metaverse, NFTs. What does that mean? How will that affect the earth and the planet as a whole? So we're going to do one video, and then I'm going to introduce you to Paul and let him take it from there. And you're going to get to know this beautiful man, and I'm sure he will invoke some and ignite some passion in each and every one of us. And then the education, like I said, is unbelievable. So here is the first video, showcases the 4 strains in MO CannaCUP, which is Dan McCann, Jack Terror, Jawbreaker, and Jawbreaker Breath, which are all strains that I've been working on, at least for pheno hunting and stabilizing and, creating my own, and then finding the ins and outs of how to do that. So there's many other breeders and capable gardeners that should be breeding, and ways to actually create an intellectual property in the form of a strain and protect that. So like I said, there's lots of moving parts, but don't worry, we'll keep you educated, we'll train you along the way. And then if you think I talk a lot, just prepare yourself. So here's the video, and right after that we'll get to know Paul J. Von Hartman. Thanks, Paul. I liked watching you, man. I could read your lips. I can't hear you. So I was right. We can't hear each other when we're talking, right? But I could read your lips. So, well, hey, you guys, thanks for joining us. If you're just now jumping in, I'm Michael Camp. This is Paul J. Von Hartman. You are listening to MK Potcast. So on this episode, we're going to be getting into the nitty gritty of the power of the plant. And we have a subject matter expert that because I liked what I said earlier. It's been bleeding green for each and every one of us for longer than I've been alive. So thank you for that, Paul. And while Paul's talking, you guys, we've got 11 minutes until 4:20 somewhere. Paul might not take a breath in between that 11 minutes. So in that time, go ahead and get something ready to smoke on, sit back, relax, hear some brilliance out of this man. I'm going to be trying out this Cubano. It has one cone in this huge box. It is a sizable cone. So I've got like a 1/4 ounce here of some Jack Terror, which is Jack Hare is the lineage. I won't put that in there, but I wanted to read this before I get you started, Paul. You guys, this is the coolest disclaimer that I've ever seen on a box, and I'm tickled by it. So it says, so this is made in France and the Dominican Republic. So if you were wondering, that's where. I know you've spent some time in France. I don't know about the Dominican. We haven't talked about the Dominican. I wouldn't be surprised. But it says not to be sold or used by minors for non-tobacco, legal herbal use only. Well, all right. I'm going to follow those directions. And while I'm loading this thing up, and here is Paul J. Von Hartman. And Paul, please start by letting us know a little bit about who you are. And then just take it from there, man. The show is yours.
Thank you, Mike. Geez, where to start? I mean, I guess I could go back to when I learned about cannabis as feedstock for producing energy, which was in 1991. I was the director for Sea Shepherd in Hawaii at that time. And I recognized cannabis as a fundamental solution to many problems when I learned about cannabis through Jack Herer's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which is the Bible of the modern cannabis movement. And I later met Jack, and he and I hit it off and crossed paths in different places in the world and shared knowledge and insights along the way. And part of my path has been to investigate every aspect of the plant that I could. The recreational, medicinal, evolutionary aspects of it, and the industrial uses of it, the stem and the cellulose and the resins and the roots, and as much information about this plant as I could. And as a photographer and a filmmaker, I documented the path that I was on, and it took me to Europe in 1996 when I left the United States with a one-way ticket to Amsterdam. And it was there that I helped with the Green Prisoners Release, Amsterdam, and that became the Cannabis College, Amsterdam, the world's first cannabis college. And in 1998, I wrote the manifesto for it, entitled The Fundamental Challenge of Our Time, and have introduced ideas and perspectives about cannabis that are unique and elevate the value of cannabis to where, in my opinion, cannabis is mankind's functional interface with the natural order. And the science backs that up because, as most people realize, we are on the brink of irreversible systemic collapse. And so the last 30 plus years of my life have been dedicated to learning and teaching people about cannabis and in all of its variations and all of its uses and all of its benefits, primarily its environmental benefits. And the fact is, cannabis is so critically important environmentally that if we couldn't make one thing out of it, if we couldn't use it for anything or eat the seeds for nutrition, we'd still have to grow it for its environmental services.
Hold on, Paul. Paul, you can eat the seeds for nutrition?
Oh yeah.
Wow. It's fun that you say that, because then if if you guys that are watching look up to the top right, it says A of Africa. That is a friend of Paul's. It's fun how the cannabis world connects individuals, and we're literally 1 degree of separation from each other, 2 max, especially if it's for the aspects like Paul was talking on of, the love of cannabis, the capabilities of it, and then, being on boots on the ground. One thing I was wondering, Paul, what year was it when you and Mary Jane met?
I graduated from Humboldt State University in 1978. And at that point, I felt that I could use cannabis to find out the truth about it, because I had grown up hearing a lot of drug war propaganda, and yet what I was observing in people was the opposite of what I was being told. And so I decided to do an experiment on myself.
Nice. For science, of course.
For science, absolutely.
For science, guys. For science.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing
this is for science. Have you ever had to pack a joint with your finger? This is awesome. Well, technically it is a cone, so I don't think we've ever packed odd joint. Have you ever packed odd joint in your life? I've only packed cones, so I only roll them, but but back to you, Paul. This is for science. I just wanted people to know.
Absolutely. Well, it's where science ends and evolution begins is where cannabis influences our society in the most particular way, because cannabis has been a part of our social evolution for thousands of years, and every aspect of it has been beneficial, except, of course, the prohibition of it. The institutional slavery that we were born into was created by eliminating the world's most valuable agricultural resource from the free market. We've never known a free market, therefore we've never known true capitalism. And so for us to recognize the true value of cannabis as both unique and essential for several reasons, several critically important reasons, is very timely, because time is the limiting factor in the equation of survival. And cannabis solves more major global problems all at the same time in the shortest span of time than any other agricultural resource on the planet.
Can you give us a quick list of those problems that cannabis is the solution? You don't got to go into crazy depth, because I know your book depth on each one, but anyone that you'd like to, by all means. But if you could just share with the guests that grouping, if you will.
Yeah, of course. Well, to begin with, our atmosphere. Earth's atmosphere is in a stage of accelerating breakdown, because the feedback loops that maintain the balance of oxygen and carbon and atmospheric aerosols, that balance has been thrown off with the death of the boreal forests and the marine phytoplankton. So that's That's number one, is the atmosphere. Next comes the soil, water, air, and wildlife. Cannabis benefits all of those things in a unique way, which takes us back to the nutritional properties of the seed, because cannabis is the best available source of organic vegetable protein on Earth and a source of all of the essential nutritional components that maintain our health and proper development. So, in the absence of access to cannabis seed, people are experiencing suboptimal health and development. And that can only lead to physiological instability and the things that we're seeing now. And of course, the mental instability that we're seeing. All systems are connected, and cannabis is unique and essential in that, first of all, it's the only crop that's capable of producing the atmospheric aerosol terpenes that are needed to block the increasing solar UVB radiation. The boreal forests that I mentioned earlier and the marine phytoplankton used to produce twice the volume of atmospheric aerosol terpenes as they do now. Because
you mean like the terpenes that we smell and we all love?
Exactly.
That actually goes up. Happy 420, guys.
Into
Light them if you got them, but the terpenes go. This is for all of us.
Well, it's the best news there is.
The terpenes themselves, like, is there a specific terpene that is better, or just terpenes in general? Because, like, I think pinene and myrcene, and how do those, like, I know how it affects me, but that's the same thing that goes in the air to protect us from, say, UVB.
Huh. You can actually see it. Next time you get a fresh or even a cured bud, hold it up to the sun and watch the trichomes catch the light. It'll look like a neon burning bush.
I'm trying that shit. That's for sure. That is for sure.
But that refractive property of cannabis is carried up into the stratosphere by the aerosol terpenes that come off of the plant. And they're the same aerosol terpenes that come off of the boreal forests and the marine phytoplankton and rosemary and basil and lots of other plants. Aromatic plants produce terpenes.
So trees don't just make oxygen, they create other particles that are good for the earth.
Yes.
Now what in that, like, do you know the ratio of how much cannabis does compared to trees? Because I mean, we all know that. I mean, you probably know the numbers of how many hectare acre of trees compared to how many acres of cannabis to equate the same CO2 sequestration and things like that. While trees aren't regenerating the soil, yet cannabis is, right? And we can grow multiple yields of cannabis in the right time zone per year, as opposed to 10, 20, 50 years for a tree to grow. Is that accurate?
Yes, but what's most important to understand is that cannabis is unique in its ability to produce the volume of plant material on a sustainable basis in a timely way in more countries around the world than any other agricultural resource, for the purpose of producing both complete essential nutrition and clean energy from the same harvest, the same organic harvest.
And this makes me feel like I'm in a cartoon, Paul. It's like this oversized for no reason. It's not, or it's real. Sorry, I'm gonna pull myself off so we can all listen. I'm a silly son of a bitch.
You know what? It's all part of the contemporary cannabis culture. And that's what's beautiful about this, is that cannabis is the world's oldest global culture. It has provided for mankind's needs longer and in more soil and climate conditions than any other agricultural resource in our history. And it has also stimulated creativity and induced peaceful conflict resolution, and has influenced our evolution as a species in ways that are critical to our respect for nature, because respect for nature is incredibly important. We have never lived in a society that respected nature, and it's come back to threaten us with global extinction. And so respect for nature has two elements. There's the don't harm nature, don't don't interfere with the systems that provide for our lives and keep us in harmony. But at the same time, the second aspect is to properly evaluate the uses and values of the resources that we have to work with. And we haven't done either one of those since any of us were born. Since before I was born, which is 67 years ago, people have been regularly burning toxic chemicals into the atmosphere and cutting down the lungs of the earth, the boreal forests, and over harvesting the oceans. We have really just practiced disrespect for nature and tied our economic system to it. And what that has done is it has induced the economics of scarcity and conflict, and the military industrial complex that protects those interests. And so all of the money in the world basically goes either to fossil fuels or the military industrial complex. Whatever's left over goes to other things, but the balance of our economy is vested in fossil fuels and the military industrial complex, and chemical pharmaceuticals, and chemicals for agriculture, and chemicals for this and chemicals for that. Well, those chemicals are finally achieving the point of supersaturation, and our existence is threatened by it. So to look at the true value of cannabis for its ability to eliminate the need to cut down the boreal forest for paper, and to eliminate the need to overfish the oceans because of the protein requirement that determines the carrying capacity of the planet, cannabis can be seen as mankind's functional interface, because it's the one agricultural resource that's capable of providing the volume of aerosol terpenes that are needed to shield the earth from the increasing UVB radiation. And when you grow cannabis at the scale needed to affect Earth's atmosphere, then you are just by default producing enough biomass material to turn into enough energy to sustain humankind on this planet, and at the same time redistributing the wealth of the world and creating what I refer to as Gaia therapeutic industry, earth healing industry. When you tie the production of clean energy to the healing of Earth's atmosphere, then you have Gaia therapeutic industry. And no other agricultural resource is capable of doing that. And at the same time, producing complete essential nutrition, the essential amino acids, all of them in meaningful quantities, and the essential fatty acids in proper proportion for long-term consumption, and the edestin and albumin proteins in hemp seed that are critical to our immune systems and the foundation of optimum health. These are all things that people should know. In fact, I was shocked in 2003. I was in Switzerland at Chanvre Info, a cannabis demonstration project that was headed by Andre Furst. And Andre welcomed me like family into the Swiss cannabis culture and gave me an office to work in, where I began communicating with the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization through their Food Security and Nutrition Forum. That was in 2003. And I was shocked that the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization didn't have any information about hemp seed and the nutritional benefits and properties of the seed. And so I started writing for the UN FAO forum, and they wouldn't post my my data and my science and my opinions. And so I started writing to each person on the forum individually. And I finally got through to a gentleman by the name of Andrew McMillan, who had worked at UNFAO for 35 years and was retired. And he was participating in the forum. And he was livid that there was such a valuable food source that wasn't known by the UN or promoted by the UN or planted by the UN to end world hunger, because he'd been trying to end world hunger for 35 years. So,
well, and on that, is there anything going on? Let me go down there. There we go. I don't want to take the logos down. I like them. I got a gold coin on my head, guys. Anywho, is there any organization, any, let's say, legislation? Is there anything going on to focus on what you just said that they didn't recognize then, right? Is there anything going on that we can get engaged in that is about now, or is it still a continual battle of creation of, there's always the advocacy, the awareness, all that never stops, right? But where are we at now as opposed to then for those individuals that would like to get involved? Outside of we've got, there it is over there, A of Africa up there on the top right. It's aofafrica.org. You can read all about how hemp seeds and the oils are saving malnutrition kids in West Ghana. Renee is an amazing, beautiful person. I think most of these individuals that I'm going to be bringing on here, the easiest way to categorize them all, they're embodiments of the plant, period. So with that, what the plant can do for us is what they do for the plant and then for others as well. So outside of A of Africa, what other organizations and things do you know that you may be personally involved with, or others could join and get in?
I'm one of the few people that refers to the executive orders signed by 7 American presidents since 1942. The latest one being President Obama in 2012. He signed Executive Order 13603. Bill Clinton before that, Executive Order 12919. And before that, there was, in 1942, there was FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, and then Harry Truman, and then Dwight D. Eisenhower, and then John F. Kennedy, and then Richard Nixon. Find something else.
And now when you say executive order, we're gonna get into it, but are you meaning on a level of stating in an executive order? That means a statement from our leader that cannabis was good?
Identifying cannabis as a strategic food resource.
That makes it good then, right?
It makes it's a strategic food resource identified in 7 presidential executive orders signed by 7 different American presidents since 1942. 1942, the Hemp for Victory campaign was initiated during World War II because hemp was critical to the war effort. The fuel from the plant was used to transport troops from America to Europe to fight the war. And this is a detail of history that is relevant to what is absolutely critical for people to understand today, is our ability to transform cannabis into clean energy is the key to a livable future. And the amount of time that it takes for us to recognize that will determine the quality of life on this planet for everyone's children. So it's important for people to fully appreciate not only the historical precedent set during World War II, but also the emergency preparedness protocol, which is referred to in Executive Order 12919 and Executive Order 13603, which is the emergency preparedness protocol essential military and civilian demand. Because as Frederick Douglass,
and for just layman terms, my interpretation of that is shit was about to hit the fan, or it already hit the fan. So then when that happens, there's a presidential order decreeing what's important for people to survive.
right.
In the event of, like, back in 40s, probably not as extreme now, is what we're like, say, a nuclear fallout, right? We have those capabilities and things like that. And then, I mean, you've mentioned a couple. Did 9/11, was it that caused one of these executive orders as well, or
No?
Because I don't know which ones, because this is all, I mean, I've heard you talk, but it's still so new to me, and it still dumbfounds me so much that back in 42, it's recognized that it's that important to be included, while so many other things are not, right? So many things were left out. That's why, so being included really means something. And then here we are still, we just now yesterday get a presidential, announcement that something's going to federally happen. And when we get into that, I'm going to let you finish, because we're going to read the article and then we're going to talk about it, because you've said some of the words that you've been saying this for how many years?
Let's see, 31.
Right. And you're not alone. I know I've hung out in some clubhouse rooms with some people that you just, not worship, but on a level that respects, to a level that they should be elevated and revered in an aspect of what they've put in for all of us.
Well, if I may say, it's important to recognize the people who have had the longest perspective on the truth, because the longer you think about the truth, the more empowered you are. You start to connect the dots. And in 2006, I read an article in the Guardian News that reported on scientists in Sweden who were studying the boreal forests. And they realized that the atmospheric aerosol terpenes from the boreal forests refracted solar UVB radiation away from the planet and served as cloud condensation nuclei. Well, those terpenes are the same molecules produced by cannabis in excess of what's produced by the boreal forests, for several reasons. It's easy to figure that out. First of all, the speed at which cannabis grows, the vast acreage it could occupy on this planet, and also just the concentration of terpenes in the plant material. If you've ever walked through a pine forest, it smells wonderful, but you're not overwhelmed with the smell of pinene, of the pine trees. You smell it, but it's not pungent. Well, if you've ever walked through a cannabis field, you know that you're just overwhelmed by the aromatic nature of the plant. And so per square foot, over a span of 1 year, I would feel fairly confident in saying that cannabis outproduces the boreal forests in their production of atmospheric aerosol terpenes.
Well, and especially since we're just destroying them, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah, that variable, and
they're actually falling over because the permafrost is melting, and so even if we don't cut them down,
the damage has already been done to a level that,
yeah,
I mean, you've got to find another solution to stop what is currently happening. Well,
right.
I want to pause for 1 second. We're gonna come right back to that. We've got a question here for you from Douglas Michael. I know another guy, Ryan. He just had to leave. Somebody had to go back to work, and they don't have headphones, and they're fairly. I don't know which emoji it is. It doesn't seem angry. I think it's the frustrated face. I'm not that in depth on it. Here, I'll just show you. Look, it says about to go to work, no headphones. I don't know what emoji it is, but I think he's frustrated, maybe disappointed. And it's probably because what Luke said here is all that canon knowledge. man, Luke, you wanna sit and talk cannabis? Oh, Paul can. Me and Paul have had some conversations. Like when Paul calls, I everything else is canceled. It could be up to 3 hours. I'm not shitting you. It literally, things get important. You got to talk, and then you smoke and you bullshit, and then you hear this. That's when you get the real good stories from Paul. So you guys don't worry. I'm going to get you into it. And then he'll break out some stories that are. There's one in particular I'm gonna pry out of him with a clever question. But let's go to this one. First question from Douglas before we get back to the Aurora Borealis. He says, ask Paul if he's heard anything about DNA imprinting on medical marijuana seeds. I'm doing an experiment on it right now, and I'm very interested in seeing if Paul has any info for me to add to my experiment I'm conducting. I'm getting 6 people with different medical deficiencies, and I'm getting them to donate their saliva, and they're going to germinate the seeds in the saliva and see if the plant produces what the patient needs. Now, I've heard that with that, some people go to an extreme and even will put blood in with it as well, but that the plant does love us so much, and it was created on that healing factor, that the genetic makeup of whatever strain may be will absolutely adapt to your DNA when it's introduced into it, but it only can go to a certain matter of how much can that one seed and what that genetic material within it can go. But it's all just been bro science to me. So do you know anything on that, Paul?
Well, my first thought is that why stop with saliva? I mean, we have plenty of bodily fluids that contain DNA that might actually transmit a more complete and fundamentally accurate picture of our strengths and weaknesses that the plant may. I think it's a wonderful idea. First of all, I love it when I hear people coming up with these amazing questions that deserve to be answered. And this is a particularly interesting one because I have experienced what I would refer to as a psychic communication with the plant. And so I think it definitely has our well-being somewhere in its phytoconsciousness. And the message that I received from my plants in Holland when I was growing about 150 plants out on my balcony in The Hague was that if any part of this plant is good for you, then what happens when you combine the whole plant in a drink? And the most available form of nutrition. And so I started making what I refer to as leche verde, because it looks like green milk when you take the seeds, the leaves, the flowers, the male flowers, and the roots, and you blend them in spring water and strain them. And the whole plant in a drink is, I believe, the fountain of youth. I think it really does reverse the degenerative aging process. And it's one of the things about cannabis that people can judge for themselves, because if it doesn't help you, at least it won't hurt you. That's another thing that people need to understand about cannabis, is how safe it is and how incredibly healing, and also the preventative maintenance of our physiology is something that cannabis is uniquely qualified to do. And so, I like to point out to people that if you are in a situation where cannabis may help you, then it's probably one of the safest things that you can try and not experience a negative result from. And you can't really say that about too many other effective therapeutics. There is a certain amount of risk involved in anything that you take. And some of the things that we have been imposed upon us lately are riskier than most. So I think people need to understand that if you respect nature, then you can appreciate that an effective herbal therapeutic that doesn't threaten you with harm is something that you might want to turn to first.
Absolutely. I've got it's great that you're talking about great questions and things like that. Doug's got another one. And if you guys don't know, this is Dr. Doug's Nursery. So you can find him everywhere on that. Instagram is king_grower_cannaman. So if you guys want to find that in writing, Doug's got them on the comments, so you can find it there. But he said after he gets it done and when the plants are harvested, he's going to, I might as well just show it so everybody can see, get the patient to eat and smoke the medical marijuana that he germinated in their saliva and see if the plant picked up the deficiency to help the patient. Absolutely. You've got, make sure you got us. Well, he's smart. You should see some of his germination things. And Paul, when you go check him out at Dr. Doug's Nursery on YouTube, he's your style. Well, hell, you're going to love it. You're really going to understand with the next question. And I've got to show it, Doug, because it is awesome. And it says, is Paul suggesting to germinate and stool as well? I mean, you're going on the back end. I was going on the front end. Yeah, I mean
well, I was actually thinking of ejaculate.
That's what I was thinking. So no on the poo. I mean, this is serious questions, guys. You're probably laughing and having fun with it, but probably wouldn't want to germinate it in poo, but I mean, you could.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, they say, dude, experience for science, right? It's for science.
The thing is, all of these things are open for consideration. And if you limit your thinking, then you limit your ability to improve the quality of life on this planet. And
Absolutely.
We have all grown up in an atmosphere of limited thinking around this plant. And I've actually been convicted as a tax protester because in 1996, because I challenged the rightful jurisdiction of the court over any natural resource that is both unique and essential. And when you consider the potential for research that has been stifled and limited for 8 decades and continues to be, then it's important for people to recognize not only does prohibition create imbalance on every level in our environment, our economics, and the social order, but it also stifles our evolution. And that's really so fundamentally disruptive to society that it's several layers deep. And this investigation into the plant's ability to communicate with us on any level, I think, is part of the evolution, the convergent evolution between symbiotic species. And cannabis is certainly symbiotic. We have an endogenous cannabinoid system.
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
and not just us, other animals as well. And then
planet.
Yeah, and then the fun part of like a honeybee not having it, and what could you do with that of capabilities? And I've wanted to have them working for me, making the only naturally infused edible and wax casing and everything for me, just loving them. Now, and that was well before water soluble THC and cannabinoids. So if anyone's listening, I've talked to a couple because, see, my grandpa, that's where honeycomb hydro came from, right? It's not just for no reason. It has a bee on it. That bee, she was designed by Robert Fleischman, the original lead singer of Journey, right? So here at MO CannaCUP, which is the logo there down that way, right? When Amendment 3 comes through, because legislation here in voting, and we'll get into that a little bit, because I think it's an important part to talk, since I think there's 5 states that's going on adult use now, and and certain things that exist when that goes to. But before we get into that, we'll definitely touch it. So if you're listening, great. If you've got questions, I've invited a couple individuals who help write legislation. Maybe they'll come in and we can get some answers right now from individuals that wrote it, right? But I am working on that for before our election here in Missouri and every November 8th, and to at least get our questions answered to the understanding of what was it meant when it was written. I interpret it this way. What does that mean? Right? So, because there's this interpretation. So law can be very tricky, right? But it's just, we have that endocannabinoid system. We have, every person is different, right? Yeah, there's terpenes that I don't like. And it's not that I don't like them. My body tells me I don't like them. It shuts me down. It tears me. It's a level of allergy almost, right? Because it's that deep of a connection within her body, so then I do it on the other end, that there's strains I can smoke that I now know is terpenes, thanks to science, and, over in Israel and all the crazy things that it's just, there's so many things we could talk about, so much knowledge you have. We're probably going to have you back at least once a month, right? And just get updates of what's going on, because you're going to have a car running on fuel that people are going to just want to see, and we'll coordinate at a cannabis event, like where people can come and model and take pictures on a hemp car, right? It just happens to be a dab bar right next door.
After we wrap up here, I'm going to go put the engine back together on a 78 Corvette that I'm restoring to run on biofuels. And, that's another part of the benefit of the plant in its ability to advance our technologies in many, many ways. Just the battery technology that's available,
absolutely,
through the use of cannabis stock to produce a graphene substitute, which is cheaper and more energy efficient and more readily available to more people in the world. I mean, it's,
there's all kinds of perspectives that they don't look like, of the individuals that complain, say data, right? Server rooms. So we have all this technology and how much of a disruption that puts on our earth, and it does. But then there's certain things that you could go do, like, all the stuff we've talked of, the soil, the air, the terpenes. But then why aren't server rooms and server farms built out of hempcrete? It's anti-static, it's antimicrobial, it's so much better. And now you're actually going through and you're offsetting. Before you even turn a server on, you're able to collect a carbon offset with an oxygen and terpene replacement to actually go to these boards and these grant boards and whatever groups of people you have to, that determine and I don't know who it is, but determine on what should be included in, say, saving the earth. I mean, there's some bonker ass ideas of what we should go do that cost billions of what you're talking of, what I've heard of Bill Gates. I know you know a lot on it. And what are some other solutions other than, hey, let's plant a lot of cannabis, save lives, make clothes, make fuel, regenerate our planet, sustain it so our kids can have something to live on, and everybody can be medicated. What are the other solutions that they're offering? Oh, that's just a bonus that comes with the terpene and the ozone replacement. Everything else is just a bonus.
Yeah.
Right? If we look at the perspective of what you're about to talk about, what are our other options of that rich, brilliant individuals from the perspective of the general population, right? Mm-hmm. What are their ideas to fix this problem?
Well, if I understand your question, I would say that recognizing the time value of cannabis. I believe that time is the NFT of the 21st century. Time is the only thing we can't make more of, and we don't know how much time we have left to make a difference. And so the idea of valuing time as it relates to the ability of cannabis to solve several major global environmental problems all at the same time transfers a value to our economics and our agricultural and industrial activities that currently isn't being fully acknowledged or recognized. I don't know anyone else who refers to cannabis as a strategic resource, for example. I've never read that in anyone else's writing, and other than the executive
orders, exactly. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and why am I the person that's pointing this out? That's a question that people ask me quite often. Is like, I'm just a photographer, and a cannabis scholar. Secondarily, after I traveled the world making photographs, and I was a commercial diver, and I'm a pilot, and I do a lot of things. So I have a very broad platform of reference on a lot of different things. But what it all comes back to, Michael, is that if we don't do the right things in the right order, then our children will be the ones that suffer. And producing atmospheric aerosol terpenes before we sequester the carbon is something that people need to be aware of, because there's a lot of talk about sequestering carbon, and there's very little talk about replenishing the atmosphere with terpenes. But if we sequester the carbon before we replenish the atmosphere with terpenes, then we'll cauterize the surface of the planet under increasing levels of UVB radiation. And
this whole big concern, the big concern, I mean, there's a lot of things on going net zero and carbon negative. And then there's even, the touchy area of what chunks of land are getting bought and who really owned them, and the areas of forest that their buddy happened to own that is going to die or is about to be destroyed. We have to save it even though it wasn't in harm's way, and they're just using this as an offset of money exchange, right? Go through, continue to destroy the planet, but I'm pumping money over into this chunk. We bought this for $30 million, and it does so many metric tons of CO2 sequential, and that's or carbon offset. I mean, and that's all it talks about is all this carbon offset. And there's companies putting billions, collectively probably trillions, into each other's pockets, or at least a program that carbon offsets. But that doesn't mean shit, really, because it doesn't matter of the order of importance, is what you're saying. It's like a math equation in algebra, and that's the fucking parentheses, and that's what we're talking about. But they're working with an external integer.
Well, the oxygen credits and the terpene credits aren't even being considered, and yet science is showing that our atmosphere is leaking oxygen. So if we don't replace the oxygen that's been lost with the death of the boreal forests and the marine phytoplankton that used to produce twice the volume of oxygen as they do now, then we're going to have a major upset in the social order. And the real threat to all life on Earth is the collapse of the human social order. And we have to, that's the real threat, because right now, even at this moment, people are talking about nuclear war. And, that should serve as a wake-up call to people that we're already too far afield, because, once you cross that line, there's no going back. And the importance of devaluing the current economic system by recognizing the potential for the cannabis-based economic system that we need to evolve into in record time. We don't have much time to do it, is the priority. because the terpene credits and the oxygen credits can be applied retroactively. They can, if you grew cannabis in large volumes
but
last
they're
year.
not even recognized. So we've got to get them recognized as something that could be, put into to offset negative impact of industrial business. Some of it just
inertia of the status quo, because the economic inertia of the status quo maintains the prohibition of marijuana in order to control the multi-trillion-dollar cannabis energy industry and the other industries that cannabis serves as the preferred feedstock for. And so it's naive to think that there wouldn't be some pushback from those industries, the the logging industry, the fossil fuels industry, of course, the nuclear industry, the pharmaceutical industry, all these industries that are in competition with hemp and cannabis in broadly exert political influence. And that political influence has dragged its feet until just recently, where now suddenly before the midterms, President Biden has announced that he's going to federally expunge the simple possession of marijuana. But that's really just a very small step in the right direction. It is a change in the momentum.
Absolutely.
Production of industrial hemp back into American farms, but the limited access and the limited progress is insufficient to the time frame that we're in. If you do the right thing too late, it achieves the same undesirable result as doing the wrong thing. And so we need to recognize that we need to do the right thing in a timely way, because time is the limiting factor in the equation of survival. Time is the NFT of the 21st century for that reason. But the good news is there is something we can do. And everybody can plant a seed. Everybody can invest in cannabis economy. The phytotherapeutic measures that are needed. We can increase our production of cannabis and other terpene producing plants in rotation in order to regenerate Earth's atmosphere, soil, water, air, and wildlife. Because mankind is not the only one who depends on the unique and essential nutritional properties of cannabis seed. Wildlife also depends on cannabis for essential nutrition and cover. It's just it's a part of the web of life that has been arbitrarily removed to great damage and imbalance. And
absolutely.
So, yeah.
And then Paul, I want to take this opportunity. So not everybody knows here, and we've mentioned, we've been talking about cannabis. We've been talking about climate change. I do have a banner here to run it, but I've got this book here. You might recognize it.
I do.
It's written by a guy named Paul J. von Hartman. Oh shit, you've got the same book. Now, guys, fun inside story. So I don't know if many of you use Clubhouse, but that's where I met Paul. And then I had I don't know if it was on a social media platform, but people that were there, I think it might have been Twitter, a transfer to Twitter, and I was doing testing anyhow. But there's 3 individuals, and I went ahead and we got us all this book because we're very passionate about it, right? And we each had different names, and we each all had different addresses. And Paul loves to plant, so I received KC's book. KC received another individual's book, and that other individual received my book. So that's impressive, Paul. Well, and he didn't do it on purpose. So, but where can we find this book to elevate our understanding of the capabilities of this plant? because I thought I knew it until I met you, and then I didn't know shit. So thank you for that. And how can the rest of us educate ourselves?
Well, my California Cannabis Ministry blog is a source of insights and references and hot links to different dimensions of the plant. As many
And what's the domain for that? Where can we find it?
California Cannabis Ministry is on Blogspot.
Blogspot?
Yeah. And or I guess Blogger is the blogger.com. But I also have films on Vimeo and YouTube. My Twitter handle is @ProjectPeace. It got suspended because of the information that I was
too much truth.
I was posting information about the mRNA injections.
Oh, gotcha. And you were being used, so I understand.
I started a couple of other Twitter handles just to get around the suspension, and so people can find other things that I've written at PJ Von H and at PJ Von Hartman. And so I have 3 Twitter handles at this point, and I kind of bounce between the 3 of them. I try to spread everything out. But there's one thing that I think people would enjoy seeing at my Project Peace Twitter. I pinned it to the top of the page. It's a short film of a honeybee in my garden, rubbing itself down from antenna to stinger with cannabis.
We can do that now. I'm gonna. That's perfect. We can show that. You said it's at your Project Peace Twitter.
Yes.
Let me make sure my computer remembered it didn't want to load up any new tabs, so hopefully it don't break it. And nope, it's working now. So perfect. So I'm going to come back to StreamYard. You mentioned the executive order. We talked about Biden, and I've got the document here. So I wanted to go over it so we could at least see the level of what it means by reading what it says and then talking about it. So this was a statement. This was yesterday from President Biden. I don't know if anybody else's. My phone was going crazy from the handles that I follow and then email subscriptions and all that good stuff. So it says President's statement. That's just as I often said during my campaign for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. Sending people to prison for possessing marijuana has upended too many lives and incarcerated people for conduct that many states no longer prohibit. Criminal records for marijuana possession have also imposed needless barriers, and then it goes on with some dots. Let's go here. It comes in following statement, President Biden's announcements on marijuana reform. It is clear that our current marijuana laws have not worked and that we need a new approach that balances science with criminal justice reform efforts. The executive actions that President Biden announced today are important. And where's the actual document? Let's go here. This one. Oh, that was Dr. Gutman's statement on President Biden's. I apologize. This one now is the actual document to where we can read. And we'll see how long it takes to load up. It's almost 7:10 somewhere, guys. So start warming up your dab rigs. I don't think it's going to load. Yeah, it's showing this wait and exit. So we're having this issue. But anyway, it said on simple, how it was simple possessions. And it had a certain wording on it, vernacular of not everything. We don't know what that is yet. I listen to Cannabis Legalization News, which is Thomas Howard out of Illinois. He's on YouTube and a bunch of others. He's got very, very good show, and then he's an attorney, so that always helps, right? But then, like here in Missouri,
not always.
Well, then it's like here in Missouri, we now, like other states too, is we've got, I believe there's 5. I don't know all 5, but I believe there is 5. I know Arkansas just got it back on the ballot, which does not include home grow. but at least has some capabilities of entering in. And then with them going rec as well, they can just come to Missouri because it's going to be that much better. And then they can go back with it legally without having to have a medical card. That's with Amendment 3 and everything going through all well. But like Dan Vietz is who helped write Legal Mo 22, which is now known as Amendment 3. And he happens to be the director of Missouri Normal. But then he's also the secretary of National Normal and president of Normal Foundation. So it's fun to have access to a 38-year cannabis attorney who now has the roles and influence on a level of what he does. So it's great to be able to have those people and call, and that's what I'm working to get on the show here. So, and we'll bring you on with and a couple others and all that fun stuff. But it's just there's lots of things happening. There's lots of change, and I find the best way we can help people understand what the plant can do, and then they can really make a justifiable decision of if said legislation is good or bad. Nothing's perfect, but who would have thought Biden yesterday would say federal prisoners that should have been released? We won't go into any of the negative aspect, right? But they have this opportunity of now that they can, and now we get to just wait on, I wouldn't think RICO charges would be, included in that, but who knows, man? Like, who knows what it's going to be? So
well, I would like to point out, though, Michael, that in my book on page 220, I introduced an open letter to Kofi Annan that was published in June of 1998, the same year I wrote the manifesto for the Cannabis College in Amsterdam. And the 500 World
Oh, shit.
Open letter.
Sorry, start over. I went to remove myself. Sorry, Paul, start over. I went to remove myself so it could get like a zoom in book reading, right? And then I removed you, so I totally fucked it up. So you start over.
Well, I'm just referring to page 220 in my book, Cannabis versus Climate Change, where I published an open letter to Kofi Annan that was signed by 500 world leaders in June of 1998. And the open letter to Kofi Annan was published in the New York Times on Saturday, June 6th, 1998. And signatories to the letter included news legend Walter Cronkite, former U.S. Surgeon General Joycelyn Elders, former Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach, and former Secretary of State George Shultz, and economist Milton Friedman, a variety of judges, police, academics, and other prominent citizens. Well, the letter was written on the occasion of the United Nations General Assembly special session on drugs in New York, June 8th to 10th, 1998. And the open letter begins, "We believe that the global war on drugs is now causing more harm than the drug abuse itself." And that statement couldn't be more accurate. And it is wonderful that people are being released from prison for simple possession of cannabis, but important to consider the drug war as a whole for the harms that continue to affect our social evolution and the rule of law, the corruption, the economic harms that have been imposed that will not be affected by the release of 6,500 cannabis possession prisoners. And it's important for us to look at this as a step in the right direction and a change of momentum. But in 1991, I challenged the rightful jurisdiction of any court over natural resources that are both unique and essential. And the reason I did that is because when you impose essential resource scarcity, you set off a series of compounding problems And people need to understand that problems are profitable, and almost our entire economic system is built on problems. If you look at the majority of the money that is spent, it's spent on fossil fuels and the military industrial complex that serves the fossil fuels industry in wars for oil. And so, we need to decide whether we want to be symbiotic with the earth or parasitic to it. Up to this point in our evolution, we've been parasitic, and we need to recognize that and be honest about it and recognize that there is an alternative. And as soon as we recognize that there's an alternative, the value of the toxic resources plummet. If people understand that cannabis can replace fossil fuels and that wars for oil are obsolete and we can't afford armies, we need farmers, we can repurpose the military to use the infrastructure and the capabilities in every country to become farmers. And as Revelations 22:2 states, the leaves of the tree of life are for the healing of the nations. And in 2022, we can pivot from the gaiacidal industries and the earth-killing social evolution that we were born into a symbiotic relationship and a Gaia therapeutic industrial evolution, because the evolution of revolution is revaluation.
Yeah, you educated me on that yesterday. But
yeah.
you said what I wrote for a hashtag, so that's when I'm supposed to show it. I want to say most of the people here watching, I believe you've been here the whole time. I'm sorry for those that were here and left and missed out. But Paul, you've got 5 minutes before 4:20 somewhere with us. I know you might want to get something to chief on, maybe grab a drink, and because we ain't gonna stop here. Normally it's a 1 hour show, is what I was telling people, but I already prepped Paul. We're gonna sit and we're gonna get to know Paul a little bit. I want to go ahead and have you guys invite some people in, because I'm going to throw a video so Paul can go get what he needs to do if he needs to. So here is Farmies, Not Armies. Oh, see, he's got that, but you might need to grind it and roll it. Oh, look at this. Oh, wait, look at that thing. That's it. Here, let me see that, Lori. Paul, look at this thing. This was a Chocolope Gorilla Glue.
Oh yeah.
This thing is solid. Like I told somebody, I probably shouldn't say it because it's not sound, but man, you could club a seal with this, dude. Hell yeah. Well, we'll be smoking together soon when we start separating all your content and getting ready to promote it on a cannabis television network for a professional sports series organization. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, Mike, it takes a head to get ahead.
Absolutely.
And that was the conclusion of my experiment that began in 1978 when I drove from California to New York City in a 1956 MGA through 3 tornadoes, and began my world photography tour at the age of 23. And before I got to Manhattan, I crossed paths with Joan Baez and was touched by greatness in meeting her. And I want to acknowledge that since then, I have been touched by greatness several times. I'm very humbled to say that. I don't mean to drop names, but, you know, as the founder of Project Peace, I acknowledge the inoculation of that consciousness by having been exposed to magnificence throughout my life, and particularly in 1979, Tanglewood, Massachusetts, where I met and photographed one of the most conscious human beings on the planet. And I acknowledge that effect and really just express gratitude for it at every stage in my life, because Joan invited me to be her tour photographer, and I like an idiot, I decided against it, but it was only because I had a previous commitment. And so it was a pivotal time in my life, and it wound up carrying me to where I am now. And those anecdotes and those experiences have many of them been recorded on film. My psychic encounter with humpback whales in Hawaii when I was the director for Sea Shepherd, I have on film. I can share it with people. It's more than just a story. It's a cultural event that can be shared.
And an experience in itself just from witnessing it visually.
Oh, yeah. I've fallen asleep on the bottom of the ocean. A lot of people can't say that. But you know, the insights and the chance encounters that I've had with people and other interesting creatures, many of them I can share in photographs and film, and people can see the interviews I've done with some of the people. I think on my Instagram account, which is at Paul von Hartmann, just all one word. You can see photographs of different people that I've met and who have influenced me in different ways at different times. And I trust that I can inspire others to understand that one person can make a difference, but one person can't make a difference by themselves. 100%. And that's why it's so important for us to open up our lives if there have been exceptional events in them or experiences. And I think everyone has those exceptional events and experiences, even if traumatic and painful, and particularly those experiences, because you know there's been a lot of pain along the way in being a cannabis activist. Now it's so accepted that I'm celebrated as an OG. I thought that stood for old guy until somebody explained it.
Well, and then that's perfect on the OG part. I've got to go use the restroom, so I'm going to throw a commercial on and a video that I made. Really, excellent. Call to action. We'll call it a commercial, whatever. A couple of videos that we haven't watched yet on this one, and then when we get back, I know that people would love to hear some stories about some celebrities that synchronicity of cannabis and the power of its attraction to others of the plant. That I'm sure they'd love to hear of who's some of the other OGs you've had the pleasure to meet. So when we come back after this video here, we'll go ahead and chit chat on that. What do you think?
Perfect.
Sounds good. All right, guys. So we'll be right back. Here is a call to action, and then I'll show you have a video for the prize pools. So if you're not already registered, get registered at www.MoCannaCUP.com. To win any prizes in the Show Me giveaways, you must be registered. But if you want to be a Canna contender, there is further steps from that, and those will be given to you via email. So you just have to follow the directions, and this will help visually dictate exactly what I just said. And we'll be right back. So thanks for joining. And when we get back, we're going to be talking with Paul J. von Hartmann, author of Cannabis vs. Climate Change. And we're going to be talking about how he's an OG and what other OGs he's had the pleasure to share some cannabis with. So we'll be right back with you. That's all right. So you guys farm these. There's Paul's here too. Hey, Paul. Fucking magic. Boom. Came right back in. I can see him. You guys can't, but don't worry. There he is. So I put a comment in the I typed a comment in the comments. So you guys, farmies to not armies. I've got Tyler and my High Times Munchie, and there's only 4 people live. I wanted to get it out earlier, and I threw this up there so they had a chance. But whoever else is watching, if you want to get an opportunity, we're going to do this giveaway right now because you've been with us for an hour and a half. Winner gets a signed copy of Paul's book. Give us, about, especially I think if Doug's still in here in Canada, it takes us we'll get about everything covered in about 2 weeks. All right, and we'll get it out to you. I don't know how busy Paul is, and he didn't even know this was happening. So I got to coordinate with him, and we get a book sent to him, and he signs it. It may or may not have the right name, and you get somebody else's book, but it does not take away from the value. His signature's on it when he becomes like superstar famous, and the content in the book is the blueprint to saving the planet with the plants. So it's a win-win for really everybody. But just you should get the right insignia on there. But hey, shit can happen, right, Paul?
Talk to the lady down at Mail Stop. She's the one that shuffled the envelopes.
Oh yeah, so it was another, and they couldn't connect the name that it said "Dear" to the address and name on the box. Got it. Hey, that could be difficult. I mean, you get lifted enough. Dr. Doug says, "Yeah, I wrote it wrong." I mean, it's possible. I didn't write the name. He wrote it. I'll carry the blame.
No, this is more interesting anyway, I think.
Oh, all right. Here, and you guys, I can't get the screen share. My computer's not wanting to load up any other thing than I have open, so I'm thankful this is working. So I'm going to be doing it on my phone here, and then I'm going to hit a button, but you're going to see exactly who has won. So there is, I'm at High Times, Walker. While I'm getting these hashtags, if you guys, we'll stop at the end of the story and do the giveaway. If you want to invite somebody else in, or if you don't and you want the higher opportunity, let me know in the comments. I won't be mad. Paul won't be mad. Well, you can still invite people in afterwards, but you've earned the option and the chance to the rewards. So it's how we work. But Paul, tell us about one of the celebrities involves a story in a theater.
A story in a theater?
Yeah, 2 names begin with C's. Everybody knows who they are. You got a really interesting story.
Oh, Tommy and
absolutely. I'm going to get the hashtags and then we'll do the giveaway.
Well,
that's me. And then
I met Tommy at the Normal Conference in San Francisco. I think it was about 2000, maybe 2013. I'm not sure what year it was, but he had just been released from prison, and he showed his film at the La Quinta Hotel, where the Normal Conference was. And as soon as the film started, everybody sparked up and filled the theater with smoke. And so the La Quinta management shut down the presentation and kicked us all out. And as we were milling around in the lobby, I heard Tommy behind me say, "I got to get to the airport. I got to call a cab." And I turned around and I said, "Well, I'll drive you to the airport." And so he and I took a ride down 101.
So you got to take like the Tommy Chong to the airport. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm following you.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm following you. Got it.
And it was great because I was driving a Toyota van at that point, and I had it all, lined in silk and fake fur. And so it was really sort of La Bamba, and
beautiful man.
And I had a bed set up in the back, and my friends called it the Sugar Shack. I don't know why, but Tommy loved it. And so as we were driving to SFO, he realized that, he had this stash box that was from Oaksterdam. And it was full of joints and hash and pot that people had given to him during this normal conference. And he couldn't take it on the plane with him. And so he gave it to me as we were driving. And I was talking with him about cannabis and climate change and filling him in as much as I could in the short time we had together. And we got to the airport and I dropped him off. And then I turned around and went back to the La Quinta and smoked everybody out on Tommy's stash. So I still have the stash box, but and the story to go with it. So it's, again, it's just another point of contact in the contemporary cannabis culture, along with people like Jack Hare. Jack I met in 1992 as a result of traveling to San Luis Obispo for a conference down there. And then there's Roger Christie, the Reverend Roger Christie, now out in Hawaii in Hilo. Roger was the cannabis activist for a long time on the Big Island.
Now, how is Roger doing? I think the last time we were talking, wasn't he having some health issues?
I haven't talked with Roger or Cher in quite a while. I've been negligent in that. I've
seen some posts from him, so it seems like they're at least back up in order on releasing some, engaging in the social media world, which means a lot to individuals around at your age. As a people know, it does mean a whole lot.
Yeah, we're still in the game.
See, but you're still young. You got a 15-year-old son, and you're what, like 88? Not yet.
98.
98. Got it.
7. And, I can't tell that I've aged. I mean, I can see it. I tell people it's the same smile, different face. But I can pretty much. Well, the interesting thing is I broke my neck in a hang glider crash in 1983, and I fully recovered from it with the help of cannabis, because in 1983 is when cannabis went from being recreational to being medicinal for me in a very tangible way. Because
so I was being born, you're breaking your neck.
Yeah.
Got it.
I was competition fighter in a 40-mile-an-hour wind. And I broke my neck in 3 places and didn't realize it. I actually got up and walked away from the accident, packed up my glider and drove home with a broken neck. But, it gave me the opportunity to experience the cell regenerative properties of cannabis that are very vastly under reported, because cannabis is a vasodilator and a bronchodilator. And when your lungs expand and your blood vessels expand, you carry more oxygen and greater healing throughout your body. And so the cell regenerative properties of cannabis, I think, need to be more well researched and documented. But I'm an intuitive, just for a number of reasons. But it has become obvious to me that maybe it's because of the long hair. I don't know. But I pick up on cosmic information in ways that have represented themselves throughout my life. And particularly as a cannabis grower in the Trinities back in the mid 90s, after I planted pot publicly on the steps of the state capitol in Sacramento for Earth Day in 1993, I went into the Emerald Triangle, into the Trinity Alps, and lived on the fringes of the wilderness for several years, growing cannabis in the old growth forest there. And I have photographs of all of this, so it's more.
It's like I've been to the Emerald Triangle, blessed. I've only been there once, but it's so unbelievably gorgeous, and the roads, holy shit! And then you got these trucks pulling logs. These roads are you wouldn't think two Pintos could run next to each other, right? And you're in a fucking F-250, and then here comes a logging truck where the roads are so curvy, it takes 15-20 minutes to get a mile.
Yeah.
Right? And these
400 feet straight down.
Yeah, it's crazy. And these trucks coming out, it was fucking wild. But then, like, because I went to a music festival out there, and it was quite a few OGs, and
oh yeah,
unbelievable. It was just so gorgeous and
Bible stomp.
Yeah, it was. If any cannabis, if any of you guys ever get the opportunity to go there for any reason, I would take on it. I know Lori's in here saying fuck that. Lori won't go to California because she feels it's going to fall off in the ocean any day. So she's just not going. And I'm like, that's logical.
No game.
Hey, well, she can't fall off. She don't go, though. So
yeah.
Oh, that's fun. But hey, real quick, and then we're going to get back into it. We want to give away, see who this winner is for a book. So we'll go here, and then that makes that bigger. Oh. So we've got Dr. Doug, and you guys, you don't have to be live here. And those that are watching now or reading the stuff later, there's disclaimers. This is only for who's live right now for this. So if you do comment later with the hashtag, we appreciate it, but that doesn't enter you any giveaway with a wheel thing. It just makes you awesome. So we don't mind if you do. But we got Dr. Doug. We've got Lori, who's not going to California. Doug Zawicki, one of our winners into the MO CannaCUP. My High Times Amazing Grower. You guys in the advanced growing category or division, I mean, be careful. Tyler Walker and School of Crop. So one of you guys, I'm going to hit this button. It's spinning. And let's see who gets it. Normally, Paul, we do that's perfect. Yes. That was my horse. That was my horse, Dr. Doug. Look at it. It says it right there. So, Dr. Doug, you're going to email Mary Jane at MO CannaCUP. Hold on. I'll pull the email up for you. And I'm in communication with you outside of this already. So, there we go. Dr. Doug, MO CannaCUP. And just so you know, Doug, your registration pack and all those that have went in, if you've not received your seeds yet, those are going out later today. If we have time, worst case, tomorrow morning. And I will be getting you guys your tracking numbers. So be on the lookout for those. Dr. Doug, congratulations. Actually, just email Mary Jane for tracking and just put in the subject line, book winner, Cannabis versus Climate Change, some indicator on that. I already have your shipping information, Doug, so we are good to go. But so that's what we like doing. Paul, you know me already, but giving away this book, like a lot of people don't read anymore. This book's powerful enough that you will read. If you like, it's just the education, the information on it, and the access to it. And you won't regret taking some time and investing it into yourself and furthering your education. Oh yeah, and there you go. It's got a lot of you guys for those who can't read very well. The book has a lot of pictures to the right. Yep, right there. There's one. Look at that. Is that the Christie's?
No, that's two little kids in Switzerland that were harvesting hemp.
I was way off.
1997.
I was way off. Okay, I can see they're kids now. I thought it was just like a young, taller dude and maybe a shorter, older lady, but now I can see that they're kids. There was a glare on it.
In 1997, to see kids harvesting hemp.
And that was where? Switzerland?
Yeah. it was a mind blower.
Man, and then you got to actually be there and then collect the pictures and the content. And
I camped in that field, and in the morning.
And they knew you were there, or you were squatting?
Oh yeah. No, I was
okay.
I was documenting the harvest, because what was happening in Switzerland in those days is what needed to happen in the United States. And I had to leave the United States to go in order to document what needed to happen here, which is happening now. And so, back in 1997, I backpacked around Lake Zurich in Switzerland with my cameras, and documented and helped with the harvest at several different farms. And that's when I learned about terpenes at the Swiss Federal Research Station near Bern, Switzerland, from a gentleman by the name of Vito Mediavia, who is a wonderful gentleman who welcomed me like family and shared everything he knew about terpenes with me at the Swiss Federal Research Station. And so I've been fascinated with terpenes since 1997.
Wow.
I can promise you that we've just only begun to scratch the surface of the subject. And when you look at terpenes in the atmosphere, and you recognize that the antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal, antimicrobial properties of terpenes are well researched and documented, we can look at terpenes in the atmosphere as participating in the purification of the global hydrologic cycle, because the antiviral, antifungal properties of the terpenes are built in to the clouds and rain and snow as cloud condensation nuclei. And so if you think about that for a while, it'll take you into some places that really we all need to go in order to appreciate cannabis for what it's truly worth, so that we can mobilize in a timely way to heal this planet. And I think that, one of the rewards I get for being a cannabis scholar is having a lot of really good information and good news for people, because right now, there's a lot of really bad news, and having good news that's fundamental to healing the imbalances in our society is a privileged perspective. And it's one that I really trust that people will be able to receive, and more as the momentum builds. And the one thing about, what President Biden has done, and what President Trump did in signing the Farm Bill in 2018 was to change the momentum of cannabis from illegal to essential. And we're not there yet. We're not where we need to be, but the direction of our social evolution has shifted, and we are gradually building momentum in the direction we need to go. And hopefully we have the time to get to where we ultimately need to be in order to heal the planet. People refer to me as a warrior, most recently in Skunk Magazine, the summer edition, where I was interviewed by Vivian McPeak, another of the OGs, the founder of Hemp Fest in Seattle. He and I had a conversation that he reported in Skunk Magazine this summer. And, the momentum of social change is something that we can increase and amplify just by being aware of it, just by sharing these ideas and consciously evolving. Project Peace in 1991, when I started Project Peace, PEACE is an acronym for Planet Ecology Advancing Conscious Energy Economics Evolution, because we need to evolve consciously And if you look at cannabis objectively, it's very obvious that it is mankind's functional interface with the natural order, because it's the only crop that produces complete essential nutrition and clean energy from the same harvest, which means we're not inducing food insecurity and malnutrition by growing our own energy. And cannabis is the only crop that you can say that about. And at the same time, it has agronomic properties that benefit other crops that are grown in rotation with it. And it is also a non-invasive pioneer crop that can be used to regenerate the damaged lands on this planet so that we can increase the carrying capacity of the earth to accommodate the billions of people that are on their way here that are currently not here. But by replacing the dependence on the fish in the ocean with cannabis vegetable proteins, the edesin and albumin proteins that are unique to cannabis seed, we can back off from the oceans and let them regenerate and let the fish populations repopulate the oceans if they're capable of doing that at this point. We can also devalue the fossil fuels industry and yank the rug out from under the military industrial complex in order to transition from gaiacidal industry to Gaia therapeutic industry. And that's the fundamental influence of the world's most useful and healing agricultural resource. And so I consider myself a healer rather than a warrior. And, warriors get wounded and killed. And hopefully healers are healed by their healing activities, which has been the case for me. I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 19 years old and realized that wasn't my path. And when I emerged from basic training, I was determined to have a beneficial effect so that people wouldn't have to go and get wounded and killed in wars. And the most fundamental way to achieve peace is to create abundance of the resources that people need. And cannabis does that. And so that's why I chose cannabis scholarship over all of the other choices that I had in my life, which was pretty much endless. I had the opportunity to become rich and famous several times, and I avoided that like the plague, apparently, because it was necessary in order to have the insights that I have now. I had to go through sort of the gauntlet as a commercial diver, as a cannabis guerrilla grower, as a tax protester. And I've defended myself in federal court twice and been convicted twice and refused to pay the fine twice. And for it.
Sorry.
So,
you said, yeah, sure, I got you. Here. No, you went, sure, here you go.
I told the judge at my trial in San Francisco that the neuralgia and muscle spasticity in my back was so extreme that I had to smoke a joint and either that or do yoga. And so he said, well, this is the federal courthouse. You can't smoke a joint in here. And so he allowed me to do yoga in the courtroom.
That's why you always go with two options, right?
Well, those are the only things that I had available to me at the time.
Wouldn't it have been great if they didn't allow yoga, but weed was good?
You don't know until you try, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
He found me guilty and fined me heavily. And I told him, Judge, I'd rather go to jail and starve to death than to give you a penny. I will not conscript my soul just to avoid punishment. And so he he found me guilty, and everybody got up and was packing up their stuff in the courtroom. This was in 1996 in San Francisco, the federal building. And I thought that I was going to be, yanked out of my socks and dragged off to debtor's prison.
And as actually, real quick, Paul, talking on court aspects, things like that,
yeah.
And then federal. So we got Doug Zawicki here. It says, with Biden's act yesterday, will it affect the shipping of cannabis product? Now, I know I've read about it. I'm not too versed with it. There's something on the federal level already for shipping cannabis in the mail for California. I have to go look through some stuff that's happening. That's actually, it's passed. I don't know if it's past the House into the Senate or whatever the progress of the steps through is, but there's some legislation they have out for actually legal entities being able to ship via USPS and being protected, which I think is crazy and dangerous. But what do you think with Biden saying, now possession federally, minor. So we have to find out what that clause means of this whatever the verbiage was of it. I can't pull it up because my computer's being an ass, but maybe I'll pull it up on my phone and then I can read it from there. There we go. But anywho, now it's federally that same description word, right? Whatever it means, if they were released from, that means it's being recognized on a federal level, that it's doesn't incur the penalties. And now, since it's federal and USPS is federal, is there a level of shipping that could go and coincide with it? Because it's been decreed that it's not this. So if there's not wording in it that says you can't, then it'd be my interpretation of know the laws in your state. I don't fucking know. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's important to recognize this as an admission of being wrong. I mean, we all know, the people in the contemporary cannabis culture know that the laws were wrong, and that there hasn't really been an admission that, okay, we were wrong. Well, now this is an admission of wrongdoing and an attempt to mitigate that transgression, but it doesn't go far enough, because the fact is that cannabis is valuable beyond the rightful jurisdiction of any court. And when you concede rightful jurisdiction, then you get involved in all these compliance and regulations and legislation. Well, problems are profitable for people selling expensive solutions that don't work. And the drug war is an expensive solution that doesn't work. And to acknowledge that in a small way can then be expanded to acknowledge it on the grand scale. And to confront President Biden about cannabis as a strategic resource that's available.
What's fun? Our Rosemary Wallace, remember the co-host for the Canna Confessions that we do in Clubhouse?
Yeah.
She's actually spoke to Biden, one pre-election and once since he's been president, for cannabis and the African-American community. So she's been in his face on a level. So that's what's fun with having individuals like you, like this plant. It'll reach out and you're literally 1 degree separation from any other consumer, right? They don't like this user word. I can understand it. It kind of puts it in with, but people are a little too sensitive. I'm a cannabis user. I consume it as well. I medicate it. I cook with it. I do a lot of things. I advocate for it, and we promote the hell out of it one way or another. But I did find the document for the proper vernacular, because it's important what words are used, and then what are the meanings of those words. And then if you're ever, because through this MO CannaCUP too, there's going to be business incubating stuff, because individuals are bringing in. There's going to be things you're going to learn, like when it comes to a contract, you might read a word and Webster Dictionary says that word means something, but then the top of the document that you sign, there'll be a glossary of what the words are and what they mean. Very important to read those things to know the hell you're signing. So, but back into words. So Biden says, as I often said during my campaign, no one should be in jail for using or possessing marijuana. Sending people to prison for possessing marijuana has upended too many lives and incarcerated people for conduct that many states no longer prohibit. Criminal records for marijuana possession have also imposed needless barriers to employment, housing, and educational opportunities. And while white and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, Black and brown people have been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at a disproportionate rate. Today, I'm announcing 3 steps that I'm taking to end the failed approach. Not me, that was Biden that said that. Let's see if we can back him on it. First, I'm announcing a pardon of all prior federal offenses of simple possession of marijuana. We do not know what that means yet. Well, I at least don't. Thomas Howard will be doing something live, I believe, today or tomorrow. And then hopefully they know what that actually means. I have directed the Attorney General to develop an administrative process for the issuance of certificates of pardon to eligible individuals. So then now there's that. I think the administration process should have already been developed, right? So who knows? Hopefully there's some people in behind the scenes that have something, because that's time frame, right? That's a time frame statement. And who knows how the government doesn't seem to move at a very quick speed. So I'm hoping that it goes on a level of, like some other people saying, is it a ploy to get votes? It's like me and Paul were talking before the show. Who gives a shit? This is great for the plant and for the people who use it and for the ones that don't know they need it, period.
Yes, same breath, I think it's important to point out that it doesn't go far enough, because the people who kept this industry alive are the people who are doing time for growing and distributing cannabis. And, those people are heroes. They're counterculture heroes that are wasting in prison for things that people currently are getting rich on. And so I think it's important to complete the process in a timely way, because every day that somebody spends in prison is gone forever. You can't get that time back with your family. Roger Christie did 4 years in federal prison without a trial. They just kept postponing his trial, and after 3 years, they finally essentially coerced him to sign a plea agreement, which resulted in more prison time, and his wife doing 2.5 years in prison, Cher Christie as well. And so, those are things that are very real to the people that they happen to. And it's great that President Biden has finally admitted that he was wrong during his years as a drug war dinosaur, implement these draconian legislation and the oppression of an entire subculture, which predominantly victimized the people of color. But, right now we are facing irreversible systemic collapse, and to admit wrongdoing in a measured way doesn't get us to where we need to be in recognizing cannabis as mankind's functional interface with the natural order. It's a step in the right direction. I'm happy that it happened, but it's
I want to go further in it on this, on the second part. So it says that the first is all prior, and then we had Zwicky here. He said prior federal offenses. Prior is a tricky word, and I didn't even think of that, and he's right. That's prior. What about now? But it should stay and maintain. But yeah, words are important for sure. So that's going to be something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. But then, like, the second aspect, he said, my action at the ending of the first, my action will help relieve the collateral consequences arising from these convictions. Well, it'll start relieving. So at least, it will help, but it's not going to fix the problem. Second, it says, I'm urging all governors to do the same with regard to state offenses. So that's very good to have the top dog say, hey, guys, I'm going to do this, and I'm urging, and that's a pretty powerful word. right? He's urging all of them. It doesn't mean they have to, but then there's, the level that states already want their own choice in things. So it can get really tricky up in the area, and regardless if the plant should be treated like a tomato, there's so much money to be made on it that it's not.
But Michael, we don't have an endogenous tomato system.
We don't do we? That's so true. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't deserve a tomato, pattern, if you will, from what you can do with it and all the walls around it. It deserves much better.
Well, the fact is that we have an endogenous cannabinoid system upon which
that is such a good argument.
Well, the thing is,
oh my gosh,
how many times in our history have we discovered a new system in our bodies? In 1988, Ralph Mishulam identified the endocannabinoid system, and people just kind of shrugged and said, "Oh, that's cool." But the fact is that the prohibition of cannabis and all the harms that have been imposed on people as a result of cannabis prohibition come from the great lie of 1937 that says THC is bad for the human body. Well, in 1988, that was disproven. And it just got better and better from there with CBD and CBG and CBN and all these other cannabinoids. And then, of course, the nutritional value of the seed, you throw that in there, and the essential properties of the plant. And so, if you look at if you step back objectively and look at this, you can see what a tiny step this is. Because when you're talking about the endocannabinoid system, you're talking about multiple levels of health and development. And so it's a gigantic thing that has kind of gone under the radar for a lot of people. And even the people that are aware of it haven't fully come to recognize the significance of it. And, part of my role in the contemporary cannabis culture is to point things out like that. Drugs don't make seeds. Herbs make seeds. Every herb-bearing seed was given to us by every deity that people have ever worshipped. And so for us to somehow, subliminate the significance of that is detrimental. And the government has spent a lot of effort in vilifying a molecule that plays a critical role in optimum health and proper development from conception to death. And, the THC molecule is part of nature and deserves respect like the rest of nature. And so, once we start to respect the benefits of the cannabinoids, then we can end the overregulation of the industrial production and the suppression of the cannabis industry that's currently occurring in things like these ridiculously low THC limits that are imposed on industrial hemp, and the fear that is generated around feeding hemp seed to animals.
Yeah,
been done
ridiculous.
For years. And so, the suppression of the industry is to be expected from the status quo, because the status quo is in economic competition with the cannabis industry. And so compliance is defeat is the bottom line. We need to challenge the rightful jurisdiction of the court. We need to exercise essential civilian demand. We need to recognize that time is the limiting factor in the equation of survival, and that cannabis is valuable beyond the rightful jurisdiction of any court. And Absolutely. Once we do that, we can really start to advance. And people who don't understand why cannabis is critical to healing Earth's atmosphere are not qualified to lead anyone, anywhere. Because if we don't fix the atmosphere, it won't matter what we do fix. And cannabis is the only crop that's capable of replenishing the atmosphere with terpenes. in the time we may have left to make a difference. So that's the starting point that I would like to hear come from Joe Biden, because I talked with the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, and his chief advisor, Robert Bonney, back in 2012. And I told them about cannabis and climate change. And it's 10 years later, and I still haven't heard anybody in our government talk about cannabis and climate change, other than to vaguely refer in faint praise to its ability to sequester carbon. But even that hasn't been translated into economic reality the way
it's not recognized for it anyway.
Oxygen credits need to be. And also, just the credit that cannabis should get for eliminating our dependence on fossil fuels, and the credits it should get for eliminating our dependence on trees for paper. And, all of those things have an economic component. And cannabis is a multi-trillion-dollar industry waiting to be recognized. And if people want me to explain how we can get from where we are to where we need to go in the shortest span of time, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, you're more than happy. And then, but that's the thing. I've been blessed to be in lots of rooms with you, and I still get. I mean, if I wasn't as crazy as I already am, I'd be overwhelmed, right? But instead, I get like reassured and calmed because you're just as crazy on a level, and then the amount of information, like people will say, wow, Mike, you've got a lot of information. And it's like, it's just a fraction of things when I get around people like yourself. So it's unbelievable. But people don't know the pictures you send me, and there'll be some like, I love reptiles, I love animals, I love plants. And you just send me pictures of like some awesome random awesomeness. Like it could be anything. And then it's just like some profound level of, how it affects your life, and the world itself is always in that. So, that's why I'm really excited. You'll be on here to help explain a few things, and we'll be, definitely pulling you back in. Like I said, at least once a month. We got some seeds coming your way, so you'll be one of those celebrity growers here in the MO CannaCUP.
Fantastic. And, I'm a biodynamic gardener, so
there we go.
Interested in the esoteric agricultural methods that are beyond organic. I'm happy to introduce people to biodynamic agriculture and the teachings of Rudolf Steiner.
And that's exactly what it is. We'll do another one of these education days, and it looks like it'll probably be Friday here if it works for you. Gives us the time, to actually get it in, and then people can watch it when they need during the weekend. And we'll get into some real nitty-gritty things of education within aspects that some know, some don't even know exists, and that's okay. Lori says, don't scare me. See, Lori said, don't scare me. You won't get scared, Lori. You'll be teaching it. We'll bring you on. You'll be teaching us some shit, and, and then it's just any listeners here like Dr. Doug. When we get coordinated on some other things, I'm now learning how to work this as long as I just have to. Like with Paul, I had to write down. The computer wouldn't let me do anything, so I didn't want to leave the broadcasting room. So I had to write down the invite and send it to him. But we found ways to get you in. So, you guys, if any listeners, when you're on the show, you want to chime in more than just some comments, just put it in the comments and let us know. And we're happy to pull you on here, chit chat, ask some questions. I know we have 10 more minutes until 4:20. So I was thinking, if you're available, Paul, answer a few questions. There's a few listeners, so you guys take this opportunity. And Lori, Lori says, I can grow big buds. LOL. She does. She does grow big buds.
Absolutely. Those big buds, darling. I want to just make that clear. Nature is the gardener.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah,
it's so funny. I can hear her laughing and the other. It's so fun. See, a lot of people don't know, and if you're watching that, I was in Chicago. I had some guy tell you some fun conversation about how dumb it was that I was a Chicago company running a digital growing competition in Missouri. And then I was like, education moment. And I'm, and then I guess I was only able to brush it because, that did you not know you don't have to open your company in the state that you live, right? Your business doesn't have to be, and there's financial advantages to it. And then going in the NFT crypto world, you better be Maryland or Wyoming, right? But there's certain things that are known from people in the specific industries. So, but it was just fun how he came at me and that lack of knowledge, that, and because it's available, it's not stupidity. It's considered ignorance because you're voicing upon something that the information is available to learn and understand. However, you chose not to and just spewed out things. And all of us have been victim to it and done it ourselves. We're only human, but some do it more than others. So that's why I like you having a physical book, right? Because even the Kindle books and digital, it's not the same effect. Maybe it's me holding on to that grasp of what we still have. But now with like NFTs, man, a utility being the physical book, now it like blows people's mind. And it's because we've been pulled away from, important things that are tangible. And, now that I don't have to hold it, that means I don't have to read it. And I got my phone in my hand. So I just do other shit. And we get real distracted. And the capability of education is so available in this world that
I've started writing a second book.
Oh shit.
Yeah, actually, that's the title.
Yes.
No, my California Cannabis Ministry blog has a PayPal button up at the top, and if people want to support my work, I'm trying to initiate a writers fellowship in order to be able to focus on my next book, which is going to include updates about environmental conditions that are being revealed by science, things that I had referred to in my first book, like the atmosphere leaking oxygen and the importance of producing oxygen, which used to be produced by the boreal forest and the marine phytoplankton, but can now really, when you look at all the different parameters of cannabis and its ability to provide what we need if we grown at the scale necessary to affect the atmosphere, then we can look at the oxygen production and the terpene production and the carbon sequestration and the benefits to soil and air, water, and wildlife. And we can attribute economic value to those things in the context of the limited time that we have left to make a difference. And what that does is it conveys the reality that money has no value on a burned out planet. And so the real value on this planet is time. And because cannabis is a time efficient solution to so many different problems at the same time, we can recognize that time is the NFT of the 21st century, and cannabis is our functional interface with the natural order that we're trying to heal. And so the investment in the cannabis, Gaia therapeutic cannabis industry is the best investment for the money that people have currently. Because if you're vested in the things that you currently depend upon for energy and complete nutrition, well, those things may not be available very soon for a variety of reasons. The baselines are shifting so quickly, we can't even anticipate whether or not the trees that people are planting today are even going to survive.
Exactly.
So yeah,
so really it's like with Biden doing this invokes that sense of urgency for individuals to write to their politicians and not necessarily on the level of, oh, I want weed, cannabis, marijuana, weed, however, try to use the proper vernacular. The powers that be, if you will and interpret it on a more educational level, and maybe you have some brilliance if you're writing and you put, oh, I want you to weed needs to be, accessible. Well, just saying it that way may make them go, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, and you've got a gym at the bottom. So just be mindful of that vernacular. That's the huge part in going into this election season. And what do these bills or initiatives mean? What's the difference between a bill and initiative? We don't want this all political, but we do want to encourage people to educate, know what's going on, get a perspective view, ask and talk with individuals in states where it's not legal, and see how they feel about things. And it may adjust and help you make a sound decision for yay or nay of any bill, or just going out and voting and invoking that right is very important, regardless which way we go. We're not here to be enemies because you voted a specific way or believe a certain thing. We actually love that conversation because the perspectives of others helps us understand how we can take the information and everything that we've been through. If you can't translate that to another person in which it's received, it's a waste of breath. So we need to know, when people say constructive criticism, we want to know what pisses people off on a level, but we need, you got to be able to communicate it without the anger. And then that's where, at least as a community, we can, some of this divide that's within could be, we can actually focus on the real things like, hey, cannabis, climate change, period. It's not recognized. Why not? There's this guy. His name's Paul. He's got a book. You can find it all over. He's always talking about it. I read the book.
Got a book and a film.
And a film. And he's an OGG that, the stories when we do some, because we're going to do some movie night, Paul. And with all the content that we were talking earlier, I'm going to make a little clip movie for you. And then we could just have an insight. Because I really want to do my own Mystery Science Theater 3000. And then what better way than to do it with the people who have the films, and we can take us, and we don't even have to have any crazy fucking editing, but we'll have digital little avatars at the back of our heads. It'd be awesome. And we just talk real stuff and have a lot of fun. And Dr. Doug says, is the film on YouTube?
It's on Vimeo.
It's on Vimeo. Dr. Doug.
YouTube.
Oh, 1 minute till 420. 1 minute till 420.
The YouTube channel is Project Peace, and Vimeo, Cannabis versus Climate Change is on Vimeo. You can look that up. I just wanted to mention that the most direct route to where we need to go in the time that we may have left to make a difference is essential military and civilian demand. And so I would recommend that people look at the overlap between military and civilian, in that the people in the military have civilian families. And so, the interests of the military are in common with the civilian population, in that nobody wants to go to war and kill and die. I mean, maybe there are some people, but given an alternative to that, most people would opt for having our military repurposed to healing the earth. And the essential strategic value of cannabis is not just essential and strategic for the civilian population. And in Executive Order 13603 and 12919, essential military and civilian demand are identified as the accelerated federal protocol that can be globalized in every country. Because if cannabis is a strategic resource in the United States, it's obviously a strategic resource in every country. Yes. And every country would do well to repurpose their military and to essentially beat our swords into plowshares, as is said.
Hell yeah. Well, like with the timing of everything and the alignment of it, I mean, you got stuff like, shifts in Thailand, right, with cannabis. And then it's like, you've met Joe. Well, actually, you haven't met JoJo yet. Damn, I'm slacking, Paul. I'm sorry. I'm working with a NASA scientist. His name is JoJo Sason, and he's Filipino, right? And people, because some don't have the time to educate and other reasons that they don't know what's going on in other states, let alone other countries, right? And in the Philippines, hemp, so what's covered under the Farm Bill, hemp, people are being killed for, imprisoned for life for hemp.
Yeah.
While we're saving lives, and then it's like I talk with JoJo, and I'm like, man, it's crazy. While we're saving lives in West Ghana with hemp seed oil, you need to add all those deaths of malnutrition on top of who you're killing because it's illegal for no reason. And then so I'd already been talking with JoJo on many things in the Philippines and the connection to it, but creating an NFT project for the Philippines and offering a trade-off, right? Like, here's a system, here's how it works, here's all the residuals that go into your bank accounts. We don't want anything of it, just you take and make, we'll start it, fully decriminalization, make weed, everybody can have it, medicine and hemp, and we'll settle with just, if it comes to that they stop killing people, that's a start, right? We absolutely shouldn't imprison in these others, because those are the workers for the solution. So like, I love what Biden's doing. I love the concept of like Missouri and expungement and all these releases and all these things that are available, right? What I don't like and absolutely not love is what after. So there's a level, being in prison myself and coming through and on the re-entry, and that's with me having a mindset and building systems. And my prison stint wasn't like the average person. I was working at the governor's mansion. I made coffee for the warden every morning, and I positioned myself to leverage my situation. So I got to learn from the guards and the civilians that came in and the volunteers from the churches, and like, why do you do these things? What's the purpose within it? What's your expectation from it? And then what's the recidivism rate that you notice from your eyes, right? And it was just, so I was able to like get a concept and understand on what was lacking, and because I had time to kill, and you leverage what you got, right? But then when I come out, COVID hits, and a concept of an app, and one of the tools in the app I'm using, it was just one of the minor tools in the app I wanted to build, but I'm using it to talk with my parole officer. And I'm like, oh, this is funny, right? But it's that level of reentry. What next, right? All these people are getting released. Federal, Missouri comes through. It's 20,000 people a year getting arrested for cannabis, right? And a lot of them, it's minor things that they will be released. Yes, there's restrictions, right? 5 pounds or less, or is it 3 pounds or less? Sorry. So then and then no DUI, no child, no weapon, no hostile threatening. What is that? Violence. There you go. No violence charge, right? But then you get and all cannabis things are subject for expungement, but anything above 3 pounds, you have to fill out paperwork and go through. And then people don't understand. Other states don't even have the capability of doing it. One, and then states that do, you have to pay to have that done. And here comes Missouri; they're paying for it. And then you got people. What about the ones with 5 pounds? No, what about the ones with 100 pounds that fits all this other criteria? You're complaining they're not automatically released. I say, thank God they have a way that they can file some paperwork, do their due diligence to take advantage of the step forward, right?
Yeah, but
then I look, where are they all going to go, Paul? What are they going to do? What's their job placement? Hemp farms are perfect.
Exactly. And, the ancillary industries that are associated with hemp production, also the manufacturing of harvesting and processing equipment, the distribution networks, all that is part of the Gaia therapeutic transition. It's the earth healing transition to earth healing industries. And so, but what's really important though, for people to really understand, and this is a major thing, is that the relative harm of the people who are currently in prison and the supposed harm that they did to society by growing or selling or whatever cannabis, it is infinitesimally small compared with the harm that has been imposed by the prohibition of the world's most valuable agricultural resource.
Hell, if they understood the oxygen and terpene replacement and all that, they should have been rewarded good time.
Well, of course,
right? Like,
well, the genetics alive and maintaining the process of evolution, because the thing is, when you change the UVB levels that are reaching the surface of the earth, this is a graph in my book. I hope you can see it.
Here, let me blow you up. There you go. There you go.
Okay, that's a graph of the increasing UV radiation reaching the surface of the earth, and that's a graph produced by NASA, but it only goes from 1979 to 2009. And I'd like to see from your friend what the graph looks like from 2009 to 2022.
Because that is awesome. Yes, we can definitely we can take some trees on that for sure.
Yeah, and so these are the questions that need to be asked, not between people like you and me on a limited way. These are questions that need to be asked of Congress and other governing bodies who are responsible for leading our
Paul,
society.
you just provided that golden ticket, if you will, of the connecting points to get that, to bring JoJo in on a level, because he's Filipino. He knows me. He's a physical therapist. He has patients that use cannabis, right? Like, there's levels of things that he can't, but as a scientist and and a therapist now at NASA, he can go through, and he already deals with the Congress level. He's who fought for, and he had to fight for an American vet to receive the Filipino Congressional Medal of Honor. Now, I was blessed to be the videographer there, and then the guy doing the sound, because I was having my kids do the sound. Like, I had multiple screens, so it was me and my kids. I'm crawling on the floor and shit, My kids are going through. So the audio on my end isn't any good. It was the guy that had the recording thing that was broadcasting it, and then he fell off the earth. So, and we don't have the audio. So I guess it wasn't meant to be, right? But needless to say, now with what you've got, we have a way in for him to actually leverage, and that's what he does. He leverages for the betterment of people for planet Earth. Period.
Well, then he will be the first person to understand that limiting the spread of disease by interdiction of the vectors that spread disease, for example, like mosquitoes, which can be killed by cannabis thrown into the water because the mosquito larvae are killed by cannabis components that can help to purify the water. Those are things that seem unrelated to cannabis therapeutics, but are fundamental to therapeutics and the spread of disease that currently are completely overlooked and underrepresented. And so when people are talking about affecting the health of populations and the purification of the hydrologic cycle, cannabis figures in a very, very particular way that transcends the irrational social prejudice that was initiated by reefer madness, and we continue to suffer from to this day.
Absolutely do.
It was Harry Anslinger, a Nazi spy, who wrote the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, 2 years before Hitler invaded Poland. We live with the impact of that espionage to this day. And if you talk to our military leadership and point out that the strongest army is the one that eats hemp seed for edestin and albumin and the rest of the nutritional benefits of the seed, then you can see that a strategic food resource is strategic not only to the civilian population for production of clean energy and complete nutrition, but also to the military for production of complete nutrition and and fuels and fiber products such as uniforms and ropes and lines. And
Man, talking about uniforms, you think with I think it would with things that are going on. I know at the Smithsonian, like anything made out of hemp does not say it's made out of hemp. It says other material or something like that, but it does not recognize that anything is made out of hemp. Even that's how far this prejudice went and discrimination against the plant, and then stigmatizing the world that what won us the war isn't even recognized in the museums on the clothing that they wore. It's crazy. So maybe we could change that too. I mean,
just elevating the plant to its strategic resource essential stature is something that can accelerate the shift in perception. As soon as the military understands that an army that doesn't eat hemp is weaker than an army that does, then things will start to change. And that's why the essential military and civilian demand, fits right into what Frederick Douglass said in 1857. In 1857, Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will." And he was right. And if we don't demand cannabis, then we're going to be put off and misled and delayed until we are aware that we occupy a condition of irreversible systemic collapse. And by then it'll be too late. And so I don't want to wait for our elected officials to get smarter when their economic investments engender their ignorance. And so in my mind, compliance is defeat. If we concede rightful jurisdiction, then we're lost. And if people aren't willing to consider all possible solutions at this point, then it's already too late, because we have a very limited amount of time to make the changes that need to occur. And the evidence couldn't be more obvious. It just couldn't be more obvious. That's why somebody like me, who, I don't even consider myself a scientist. I'm more of a journalist, and, I'm an investigative journalist and a photographer, but I am also schooled in the life sciences at Humboldt. I had a special major that combined art, wildlife behavior, and journalism with a minor in aviation. And so my background is broad. And I like Ethan Russo referred to himself as a Renaissance dilettante. And that's kind of what I feel. I'm a Renaissance dilettante. And, I have a limited amount of knowledge in many areas. And yet when you connect the dots between those areas, it provides insights that then help to advance the benefits of those insights. They operate synergistically, like most things do. All systems are connected, and cannabis is connected to everything. And just the realization of that makes prohibition it makes it obsolete, functionally obsolete. And it needs we need to overcome it, because currently we're still bogged down by it. And, I can't say enough how happy I am that 6,500 people are going to be released from prison. But
exactly. But
in a very large bucket.
Exactly. Well, Paul, I want to say, man, thank you so much for the time. We're going to definitely be bringing you back, and we're going to go down some rabbit holes of what you call your life. And because there's so many unturned stones, even like it's so fun. Like we could sit literally, we could do, and maybe that's when we'll do one of our like our canathons and raise some money for like A of Africa and then the humpback whales and other fun little things of leveraging what you've already done that you've been expressing, and now you just get to say it again, but with a louder voice, because the people are building up, the farming is being built, and we happily invite all you guys to join us on this cause. And first thing by is, if you are a writer and doing those things, do express to your state representatives of the power of the plant, the right that we should have it. Get you a book of cannabis versus climate change to at least have a written form of about everything that Paul's went over today on a level of the capabilities of the plant. The book is chock full of brilliance. There's also some amazing pictures that showcase Paul's photography and let you see a little bit of the lens of his life at that time. And it's this MO CannaCUP is just it provides an opportunity. And then with legislation change and now Biden, this is the time to take this momentum, regardless of what we don't like about the certain aspects we've heard here. Now there is something we can do about it, right? There is a place we want it more, of the model of a tomato, if you will. Even it, like Paul said, we don't have a tomato avoid system, or whatever the hell you want to call it, right? A catch-up system, right? We have a cannabinoid system, and that on the level is, if you really listen to what that means, it's pretty wild why we don't have it. But we all know, because the money it makes and the freedom it provides. So we'll keep fighting for it. And I know you're never going to stop. And I really, really look forward to having you back on here again. And it will be very soon. And you guys listening, if there's anything, if you've made it from the beginning to now, put in the comments what you would like to extrapolate further in on something Paul mentioned of what he's done, and maybe a name that perked your ears, a thought process, whatever. You let us know. I read the comments, and then we can incorporate that. Paul, definitely want to get one with you and JoJo on here, and we'll see if we can get people's heads to explode, because I can only imagine, as you guys talking on the level of experience that you have, and then with the vernacular and education that you've chosen to acquire, right? It's not like it just came there. You put effort into these things, and that's why you are an encyclopedia of cannabis. And we're going to keep, people don't realize there's volumes. It's not just one volume. There's volumes of what you've done, the impact, and as I can only imagine of how much you feel that you've just been playing parrot and repeating yourself, and nobody is listening. So that changes now, and we're going to take this all the way to the White House on the level of what it needs is demanding this strategic resource, because we have that right. And Biden, he just said, hey, like you said, man, we were wrong. We were wrong. So that opens up. Well, what else were you wrong about? And not about like, I'm not going to go left field of some other. We're going to stick just to this plant. What else were you wrong about this plant? And yeah, let's get the farmies together, and we'll get them marching, and let's make some change. And like I said in the text, Paul, I wouldn't want anybody else to be able to like go, well, it's not like it's my charge, it's the charge of the plant. And when you recognize that, it's so amazing to march with the other individuals for the actual purpose of change, not just making some money or being able to do what the hell I want to do, which are both fine things. All right. We just put a little bit more in it, and we like to get the information and education out. And you've paid a lot more than some, and there's more that have paid a lot more than we have. And it's in the memory and honor of them that we continue this fight. And the White House hears it. They hear it. you're reading about it. So now we encourage you guys to educate yourselves. Like you said, let us know what you want Paul to talk about the next time he's here. And if it's something serious, great. If it's just campfire stories, shit, we can get well medicated before, during, and after. So,
but it's important for people to understand that leaders don't lead; they follow good advice, and a great leader will follow good advice the first time he hears it. And there has been plenty of opportunity for people to hear what I have to say. And if they choose to trivialize it or ignore it, well, that's a choice. It's not necessarily a good choice, but it is important for us to understand that our military leadership needs to be directly engaged, because our political leadership is heavily influenced by our military leadership, and the military leadership currently will eventually be in the position that our veterans are in right now. And the veterans and the relationship with cannabis that our veterans have is also relevant to the overlap between the active duty military.
Absolutely. That's an amazing perspective, man.
Yeah. And so we need to recognize the overlap between the active duty military, the civilian population of veterans, and the benefits of cannabis in addressing many problems that are faced by the veterans in our society. And I just
all I gotta say is I can't believe I haven't spoke with you already about the former DOD HR that I'm working with. He's 22 years DOD for HR, right? He's a service disabled small business of color. He's out in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we've got no, this isn't JoJo. This is a different one, and we've got access. And have you heard of the grants, the HCATs, Human Capital and Training Services?
No,
but it's all it aligns with a lot of what you're talking, and it's billions of dollars for the level of this reentry and veteran aspect. And with you talking on the veteran, and that's so the veterans and what they're going through now, and more so how cannabis is helping them, is not only the relief of them, that is the research and the proof to alleviate beforehand, if you will, or at least take care of if it shows up, and when it shows up, of our current existing officers. It's just
well, the wheelchair
the longevity of your fucking thought process is so, I love it, man. I love it.
Well, I've been involved with wheelchair accessible gardening systems for more than 20 years, and I can tell you that the overlap between the active duty military and the veterans, and the transfer of knowledge between the generations, all come back to accessibility. And when you afford access to the soil for people who would otherwise not be able to reach it, then you create a dynamic that affects the transfer of knowledge between the generations, because you have elderly and physically limited people who have a passion and knowledge of agriculture and gardening, and the children from the upcoming generations are able to garden with these people in a way that facilitates social engagement and the transfer of knowledge that's essential for future generations.
We have so many more shows, Paul. This is you guys, like I said, you want to extract some of the brilliance and and get the stories that led to this level of education and understanding and perspective of the world and the plant, and how with the benefit on so many levels. Just let us know in the comments, and hell, if you want to come on here and talk to us about it, we're open to that as well. We're nearing the 3-hour mark, so I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw some breaks on here. We're going to cut this into quite a few different ones because people will see like 3 hours and go, oh shit, that's way too much of my time. And then while they're doing that, we're going to go ahead and get this and get it on Vimeo and pump it over to, we'll call it testing, right? So we're going to be testing the new streaming capabilities of the Cannabis Network for Abigail University, which is the education center and business incubator for the ABA. So, and that's the American Basketball Association. Because if you look, some people have Googled ABA, and then they've asked me some fun questions, and at least it was an acronym. A couple got creative, and they went like to other countries of what the ABA is. Like, it's silly shit. People are silly.
A little anecdote for your audience. When you Google my name, make sure to include the J.
Oh yeah.
If you don't, you'll get a fictional Nazi that has obscured much of my work. Robert Harris wrote
Nazis.
Yeah, Robert Harris wrote the book Munich that has since been made into a film, and one of the primary characters in the film has my name. He stole my name for his book, and so if you want to see evidence of my work being actively obscured on the internet, just Google my name without the J. About how you feel if somebody used your name as a fictional Nazi. I'm tremendously offended by it, and my family would be horrified if they knew. My father was with the 3rd Marines in World War II at Iwo Jima, and so I am livid about it. But
but you medicate enough, you deal with it, right?
Well, it's part of what I have to deal with. There's a lot of things that I need to calm down about, but that's definitely one of them.
Hey, and then I was thinking when you get out working on the car, we could always do an automotive one, and you can teach.
Well, people can tune in to the Hillbilly Garage on the Corvette forum to see what I'm doing with the 78 Corvette. Hillbilly Garage is my Corvette forum thread.
Absolutely. Well, after this live, I'll have you go on YouTube and then just put those links in the comments, and then everybody, because they're not going to scroll up and look at all the comments anyway. So it's best whatever we want, throw it on the last one, and then let people comment afterwards, and then throw it in again, because we as a race can be very lazy. So it's just how it goes, man. We get that Amazonitis. And, that's why like these Airbnbs, if these individuals setting up that's, actually like to go out and do work. It's wild what you could set up now, right? We can set up stuff that, hey, come on out. You're going to pay me. I'm going to provide all the wheat. We're going to start off right. You're going to get all the flour and product, and it's going to be a lifted time, but you're going to pay me to come work on my farm. And people are going to, but up, you get a lavish. And I mean, we'll go all out. We'll do some 3D printed hempcrete, awesome bungalows with some viewing positions. And I mean, we'll do it right, but you're going to have to work when you get up. And people because it's the education aspect, that's not we're not one, it's for the education. It's all, how do you perceive things? And nobody coming there to do those things looks like, oh, I'm doing it. That perspective I just portrayed. It's a level of, they're excited because they get to be involved and learn from OGs like yourself, and then get your hands dirty on levels. And then once they can grasp that, then we'll introduce hey, you can do that from sitting in your house with an Oculus or a virtual headset, or go to this said metaverse, and you don't need any of that. You just need a computer with a processor of this speed, blah, 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 right? And then now, it's the capabilities are, it's unbelievable. There's only small percentage that are working crypto and this, that, or the other, but it's amazing how much is 3rd world level countries, right? Because they now have cell phones, and because they have access to certain things, they leverage and utilize different tools because their life is different than what we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And there's people like we're able to reach these individuals through a crypto wallet. Period. Right? Just on level, that's simple. Boom, instantaneously, and then they can go exchange that in other networks that are involved for, say, food, clothing, solar panels for electricity, things that are this collaboration level. It's going to be crazy, and it's beautiful because it's here, and now the voices get to speak, and those that don't believe it get to watch.
Like to contact me directly, they can reach me on Twitter, or they can reach me by email at projectpeace@yahoo.com is my email address. And I welcome people's alliance. I mean, that's really, we need to.
Oh, I just thought of another great episode, how to create your own church. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. The California
that'll be a good one.
Was it's an individual ministry. It's a secular ministry, non-religious, but the California Cannabis Ministry was founded in 2007 when my son was born. And my commitment to cannabis since 1991 as a cannabis scholar was formalized in the California Cannabis Ministry as a way of demonstrating for people what they can do for themselves in developing a direct relationship with what I refer to as the great you name it. Some people call it God, but that's kind of a loaded term. So I just, I can't possibly comprehend what God is, and I wouldn't worship it if I could. But nature is the most direct representation of God that we have, the most tangible. And so I worship nature as the great you name it, and the product of that magnificent consciousness or energy or process, whatever it is. But I don't pretend to understand how it works, and I don't think anybody else does either. So
we all we strive to learn.
Relationship with the great you name it, I would encourage you to do that, and you can start your own ministry. And it can be individual and secular, or it can be group and non-secular. But the fact is, if we reintroduce spirituality into our economics, then we have a spherical economy. And the idea of a spherical economy is one that includes all dimensions, from extraction of resources to recycling and decomposition and repurposing and spiritual reverence for this thing that we were all born into. And that's what I would like to inspire people to seek the answers within themselves. And I certainly have gone there and found it to be a wealth of insight that has been enhanced and accentuated by my deep immersion for long periods of time in nature, as a commercial diver, as a gardener in the woods, and I think those are insights and relationships that can be shared and are of value.
Absolutely. No, and then like with this, Paul, I think I'm looking at how much fun I've had. We're gonna have to definitely do this once a month. We'll get the next one going. We'll broadcast out, and we'll have some topics we're going to talk on. So that'll give some leveraging some people to get some names in to answer questions that people might just, very well shit their pants, because they're like, how in the hell did that? Don't worry. It's because of the plant. Anything's possible. Just breathe, maybe inhale with a little bit of cannabis, and then perspectives can be seen. But I wanted to go out on a comment here, and then we'll throw a video to end it. But then, please in the comments, let us know what you've got more questions on. For those that have listened all the way through, you guys, it's pretty impressive. We're going to be hitting 3 hours. So if you didn't know why I was going, oh, Paul, I have a good idea, because I was getting video entries. So thank you, Paul, for the introduction video wise. For the next like 6 or 7, I'll be able to go and cut You answered it perfectly on the questions I asked that made people are like, that's probably like left field. Nah, it was set up for future guys. Paul has taught me longevity. JoJo's taught me on a level. And when these two collide, it's going to be like a tornado meets a hurricane, while like a fucking 9.7 earthquakes rocking with tsunamis coming from both sides. So
don't forget lightning.
Well, fuck. It's gonna open up black hole. It could open up a black hole. All right.
I've been in tornadoes. I've been in hurricanes.
Well, all right. So that collision could create a black hole. That's all I'm saying. It very well could. But we've got, thank you, Paul, from all of Canada, Newfoundland, and he learns a lot from you today. He'll pass it on, your knowledge, as best as he can. Thanks so much. Never give up. Dr. Doug, pleasure for being in here. And congrats on winning the signed book. You're going to love it. You'll be able to implement what Paul expresses. And I mean, he put a piece of himself in that book, and not like what we were talking in the first hour. So don't worry on there. And yeah, Paul, thanks for joining. We'll definitely we'll see each other on some other social media platforms between now and then of course texts and phone calls. Don't stop sending the pictures. They're I can start filing them myself, getting them organized, and we can make some, take some local artists and the fun things that I'm already tying in, and we take your art and we throw it together and say, oh shit, that's perfect. And then we get to share it with everybody. So
thank you, Mike. I want to just make a point of honoring your commitment and your great energy and everything that you're doing to move these bits of insight along. I really do appreciate it.
No, you're a blessing. Everybody's going to get to experience it, witness it, and together we can, strengthen together, make that voice that will be heard and be the ones that make the change. So thank you again for joining. It's not just you, Paul, for joining, but everybody listening here, everybody that comes through and listens after it is. I will go through and dissect this to some separators probably by the hour, so something close of what we have, and we'll see if YouTube can separate any of our conversations, because it's got some fun little tools, but I can at least separate it and more engaging things. And then be taking some clips out of this, Paul, and that'll be our advertising boards, because you described the aspects of what you're doing and what you've been doing. It's so complex because it's been your life of 50 plus years of just boots on the ground. So like I said, we'll be able to leverage this. Oh, there we go. We'll collect all this, Paul, and then we'll bring my buddy Harold, because he's going to be coming in. He's a former producer, Death Row in '99. And so he's got some connections, right? But he's also the senior advisor to Joe Newman of the ABA, and really good friends with the president of the Bahamas, because he's got a $22 billion project that he coordinated down there. And it's great on it. It's for help in the country. It's unbelievable, the project. And then the opportunity. Ready, Paul? Hemp is not mentioned in it. However, we've got the ears of the people going in too, and they're interested. So,
well, Dolphin Economics, Mike, says that you help me help you help everyone.
Fucking dolphins.
Dolphins taught it to me. It's a 1,000,000-year-old economic system that mankind needs to understand and learn in just a few years. So you help me.
So we'll get me, you, it's some really good looking celebrities, and we'll take them swimming with the dolphins, and then maybe they'll listen. We just got to leverage what exists, and then they're already there. We can't go on TikTok and talk about cannabis, but if you've got a good enough looking female and she doesn't talk about it, and you have logos all over what else isn't there, that's permitted. It's crazy. So maybe now with this change and recognition, it'll adjust. I didn't even think of that. The shift it could add into just there is a specific thing about marketing, and that needs to be broken down on advertising. There's some vernacular in it. Like me and you'll get around and say, well, what do you think it means?
Well,
so it'll be fun. We've got so many days hours of more content, and we're going to leverage that. So,
well, solutions, it's the problems that are complicated.
Exactly. Damn it, I should have had that one. I knew you were going to say that, and I don't have that on a banner, so I'm slacking.
It takes ahead to get ahead.
I'm slacking, damn it. But all right, so I'm going to throw a video. Let's get the registration again. It shows the plants. Yeah, it's the most visually entertaining, I think. So I'm going to go back out with it. You guys, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed the show. This was an MK Potcast, the first of many with Paul J. von Hartman. And if your head almost exploded, was sorry, not sorry. But thank you again, Paul.
Tank. I've done one of those too.
Exactly. But thank you again for joining. Here's a video with promotion. None of this is possible without viewers like you, and then of course the sponsors that get behind us and support us. So if you have a personal company or a product that you think should be up on the board here or want to discuss, Mary Jane at MO CannaCUP. It's not a she. It could be if there was a she that wanted to manage it. However, right now, Mary Jane at MO CannaCUP, that's going to come to me. So if you write it, it's not a she, but it is an essence, in which I feel like I consume enough that I could say I am definitely part cannabis.
Any separation is a construct of illusion.
And there you go. That right there is perfect to end on. Much love, guys. As you see the hashtag that's been kicked going, don't forget to get your copy, Cannabis vs. Climate Change. And you can get it at Amazon. For ease, you can go to Paul's website, which he's going to put in the comments because I don't have it up here right now. But if you're interested in getting a signed copy, go ahead and email Mary Jane, which is me, right? And then we can go ahead and coordinate all the good things that's needed, and we won't overwhelm Paul on book sales. So, Paul left. His phone may have died. That's very possible. But much love, guys. I'll see you here on the next one, which will be Sunday. So Sunday Fun Day. Join us. I'm going to have working on having some really fun special guests. We'll see if it happens. And here is the video.